wife of Macomb placed on administrative leave following an officer-involved shooting.
Federal prosecutors indicted former NOPD officer Todd Morrell 2 years after Lee Zurich's Attention to the Details investigative series began. Those reports outlined at least 20 instances in which Morrell appeared to race cars while also collecting a taxpayer check for NOPD shifts and off-duty details in the New Orleans Fairgrounds neighborhood.
And former police chief and Jackson police officer pleads guilty to lying to a federal agency and could face a decade in prison.
Former doctor Reynaldo Ortiz faces a maximum of 190 years in prison. Surveillance video presented during the trial showed the Dallas anesthesiologist repeatedly taking bags out of a warming bin and then putting them back. Prosecutors say Ortiz injected dangerous drugs into bags at a North Dallas surgical center, causing 11 patients to suffer cardiac emergencies in 2022. Evidence at the trial showed at the time of the emergencies, Ortiz was facing disciplinary action for an alleged medical mistake during one of his own surgeries. One doctor died after taking an IV bag home to treat herself for dehydration. That physician was Dr. Melanie Kaspar. In the trial, her husband, John Kaspar, testified he tried to revive his wife with CPR before paramedics arrived, but was unable to. Then 18-year-old Jack Alderstein also received one of the tainted bags. His doctors testified he nearly died on the operating table. Ortiz was convicted at the trial in April of numerous charges involving tampering with a consumer product, resulting in serious bodily injury. The hearing today set to get underway at 10 a.m.
Mayor Cordinian Lockley says Chief Juan Cloy was placed on paid administrative leave. Now, this comes after following an officer-involved shooting last week that left a 16-year-old dead. Now, 3 on Your Side had exclusive video right here of that shooting on Thursday, November 14th, which took place on the 25th Street, resulting in the death of 16-year-old Jamorian Sieber. NBI said in its initial investigation, officers encountered what was considered a suspicious vehicle, and then 2 suspects exited the vehicle, with one of them pulling out a weapon. That is when officers shot and killed Sieber and then later arrested another suspect. And according to Mayor Lockley, Chief Cloy will remain on leave pending the results.
The investigations also found Morrell appeared to have double-dipped, working both regular NOPD shifts and off-duty detail shifts at the same time.
When you clock in to be a police officer on duty, that's a sacred responsibility.
With the trial set to begin December 9th in a new court filing, Morrell's attorney is trying to prohibit Fox 8's series of reports on Morrell from being used at trial. His attorney claims the reports on Morrell are hearsay.
Hearsay is an out-of-court statement that can't be cross-examined, so it is excluded, but there are plenty of exceptions to the hearsay rule.
In a newly filed response, the U.S. Attorney's Office fights back to the defense motion. The feds argue courts often allow news reports to be included as evidence at trial when they are used to help establish what a defendant's state of mind was at the time of the alleged offenses.
The government's going to say we're not doing it for the proof of the matter asserted. That is, don't believe the reporter as the truth sayer in this case. We're using it for other reasons.
The U.S. Attorney's Office says the Morrell case involves a sprawling fraud scheme in which Morrell defrauded the city of New Orleans, his private employers, and disregarded the needs of the citizens he was sworn to protect.
You want to trust that the police will do their job.
Good morning. Welcome to the Bad Apple Report. It's 7:30 a.m., bright and early right here at home on the range. Thank you so much for being here today, folks. I really appreciate it. We're going to start our day out in Colorado Springs, where this big cuddly cop with an earring, turns out he's a bad apple. That's right. He looks like Mr. Normal with his Mr. Normal mustache, his normal guy hairdo, but look him in the eyes. I guarantee you this guy has a subscription to CRAWLSPACE GARDEN. Okay. Allegedly. CSPD officer arrested for allegedly intimidating a victim. That's right. A 30-year veteran officer of the Colorado Springs Police Department has been arrested after being accused of inappropriate sexual contact with a minor and for allegedly attempting to intimidate the victim. That's right. CRAWLSPACE GARDEN. Okay. According to a press release from CSPD Sergeant Glenn Eric Thomas, that's him, Sergeant Glenn Eric Thomas, the knucklehead, was arrested on Thursday, November 21st after a judge signed an arrest warrant. Look at that big cuddly goofball with an earring. Dummy. The initial report was received on October 16th and stated that Sergeant Thomas had engaged in the inappropriate behavior at an address in Woodland Park. During the investigation, CSPD learned that Thomas had also tried to intimidate the victim. CSPD said probable cause was developed to arrest Thomas for intimidating a victim, as well as prohibited contact with a former spouse, which is a violation of protection order. Charges related to the sexual contact allegations in Woodland Park have not been filed. Ooh, it's coming, though. CSPD said Thomas has been employed with the CSPD since January of 1993. Whoa. Man, that's a long time. I got a van that's that old, and is currently assigned to the DUI unit in February 2018. Thomas was also presented with a Ken Jordan Award for Excellence in DUI Enforcement. Oh, he's so excellent. He has since been placed on paid administrative leave pending a review of the case and a filing of charges by the District Attorney's Office. Oh, both criminal and internal department investigations are ongoing. That's right. Look at that. Veteran officer. He's been around a long time. That's right. Now he's going to jail. That's fantastic.
Mayfield had been scheduled to go to trial in 2 weeks for allegedly selling ammunition and a firearm to a convicted felon, as well as lying to federal authorities. Today, he pleaded guilty only to giving that false statement in a form when he purchased a rifle in October 2021, telling the feds he would own the weapon. That rifle would later be given to a convicted felon in exchange for $3,500. Assistant U.S. Attorney Charles Kirkham told the court today the felon made recordings of his meetings with Mayfield and turned those over to the federal government in exchange for a deal of his own. Now, the prosecutor told the court that Mayfield had been trying to raise money for an unsuccessful 2021 campaign for Hinds County Sheriff. In fact, he even told the felon that $3,500 was too much for a rifle. The felon replied that Mayfield could use whatever money was left over for his run for sheriff. Now, this isn't the first time we've investigated Mayfield. You may remember 2 years ago, 3 on Your Side uncovered timesheets showing Mayfield claimed to work 4,500 hours of overtime in just 1 year, working all but 2 days that year. The almost superhuman amount of hours sent his paycheck soaring to $140,000. That's more than even the police chief made. Mayfield was quietly let go from JPD and was never charged in connection with that behavior. Now, you might be wondering why, after more than a year of this case languishing in federal court, did Mayfield decide to plead guilty today? Just days ago, a jury found former Hinds County Interim Sheriff Marshawn Chrysler guilty of accepting bribes and giving ammunition to a convicted felon. Well, court documents claim that felon was the same man who got a gun and ammunition from Mayfield too. And in both cases, the felon used recordings of the men to bring them down.
83rd southbound, we have like a little Infinity SUV that's kind of driving a little bit weird with no plates, it looks like.
In the dead of night, a hunch brings the undercover officers
I don't think he came out yet
to life.
Tim, I haven't seen him. Looks like he just came out and made a left turn.
Thornton's impact team is once again on the move.
Yeah, left turns are going on.
GPS data tells us the route the unmarked trucks take as they follow the car with the missing plate out of Thornton into Denver and onto roads like I-25 and Federal and Alameda. 17 miles into it, and in yet another city, the quiet surveillance ends. Not so quietly. They push the car off the road, jump out of theirs, and then shoot and kill 2 trying to jump out of the cornered car. The woman has a gun in hand. The man does not.
Just the way that he was shot.
Frank and Deneen Vihill's son, Joby, died with a head wound so big.
I can't explain it. It's just...
No officers felt the need to revive him.
I don't know how to put it into words.
We know that he didn't deserve that. Nobody deserves that.
Following him all the way from Thornton, it doesn't make any sense to me.
As 9 News Investigates found, it's hardly the first time the impact team has lived up to its name.
You're under arrest! Show me your hands!
It is a team, according to records we found, devoted to dealing with fugitive apprehension and motor vehicle theft. And it is a team we found that has a knack for confusing people along the way.
Where you shot, man?
Like this time, when team members shot and wounded a man in Denver, much to the surprise of police officers. In Denver.
This car missed to Thornton and he hit the retaining wall. Oh, this is a nightmare, and the shooting happened here in Denver, so our shoot team has to work it.
Put your hands up!
Months later, Douglas County Sheriff's deputies finished what the impact team started. 2 in the car, 1 shot and wounded by deputies. The other went on to tell investigators she had no idea who was following them out of Thornton that night.
Have you ever seen an undercover car look like that? No, I have not. Okay.
Undercover work with unmarked cars carries risk because while those who do it know they're officers, those being followed might not.
Then the question becomes, who are you and why are you following me? Because in your mind, you're thinking I'm a potential victim. So then that makes you become defensive.
Former police officer turned police trainer David Thomas says this undercover team doesn't do a great job of staying undercover.
It was obvious to the suspects that they were being followed.
You guys want me to take that turn with him, or do you want me to?
While we don't know what either Joby Vigil or the driver was thinking the night the 2 died back in April, thanks to GPS data we obtained from the impact team, we do know this.
All right, just turned eastbound. He's making a U-turn. He's on Cedar and Federal.
While in Denver, the car under surveillance at one point doubled back.
Northbound Federal.
Back north on Federal, west on First, south on Hooker, east on Ellsworth.
Okay, we just made a left turn coming back your way.
South on Federal again, and then west.
Mount far right lane, coming up to Alameda.
On Alameda. One big loop.
I look at that and I feel like that looks like they may know they're being followed.
They absolutely know they're being followed, and that's why they took the detour.
Thomas says it's at this point the surveillance needed to end, if only to clear up some possible confusion.
So the best practice is, as far as I'm concerned, is have a marked unit available to be able to assist you in the stop that you're going to make.
That never happened. The surveillance continued until it came to a stop near the intersection of Alameda and Sheridan, when someone in the surveilled car made it known they didn't like being followed.
Shots fired, shots fired.
Track copy, shots fired. I'll get Denver emergency.
Only then did officers turn on their lights and sirens and body cameras, which is why we know precisely what happened when this reached 2nd and Garrison in Lakewood. Thomas says officers had the right to shoot the woman.
Hey, that gun is right there.
The driver who had the gun in hand when she jumped out.
I have no problem with that one.
He doesn't feel that way when it comes to the shooting of an unarmed Joby Vigil.
That's where we get to it starts to fall apart to me. Basically, there should have been 2 actions that happened in this shooting. There should have been one that dealt with the female that was armed and one that dealt with the male who they had no idea what they had.
The local district attorney has yet to decide if this was a crime. Weeks ago, Thornton police did tell us they'd talk to us on camera. We're happy to meet with you to answer some questions. And then weeks later, they too doubled back. We will be declining your request. Our GPS data tells us the impact team routinely takes their unmarked trucks outside of Thornton, leading to confusion in places like Dacono, where one man said he thought the team was someone else trying to hurt him.
Is this going to continue?
Joby Vigil's parents are hardly convinced the team's efforts are worth the cost. They say the path officers took that night tells them this feels less like surveillance and much more like something else.
He was stalked. Our son's dead. And we want those answers, like what reasons could they give us for what they did to our son?
I'm my brother's advocate, and it's not going to fall through the cracks.
It's been a little more than a year since Sal Herrera was shot and killed on his way home from work at a suburban country club.
The loving presence of our dear brother Salvador Herrera.
From grief grew a commitment to help cops catch the killer or killers. They attended vigils, handed out flyers, and made sure his case wasn't forgotten.
He passed that along to me, like the never give up mentality. And that's ultimately why I'm sitting here today, because now my brother sadly does not have a voice, but I'm here.
Her brother's case remains unsolved, but she's noticed a new claim from Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Right now, we have a homicide clearance rate of nearly 54%. And again, while we have more work to do, you all, it is the highest since 2015.
I'm not interested in statistics that kind of make someone look good.
Even by national law enforcement standards, cleared doesn't always mean someone was held accountable. While the mayor claims a 54% homicide clearance rate, if you only count cases where there was an actual arrest and charges, the clearance rate drops to 23%. A majority of the remaining cases, 117 to be exact, were counted as cleared by what police term a bar to prosecute, which is essentially detectives saying, we know who did it, but can't get charges approved.
That's astounding.
What does that tell you?
It tells me that everybody is playing CYA. They are covering themselves.
Gene Roy is the former chief of detectives in Chicago. When he retired in 2016, the number of cases categorized as cleared without an arrest due to a bar to prosecute was 23. It has increased significantly in the years since. Roy said he believes State's Attorney Kim Foxx's focus on wrongful convictions has led her prosecutors to set a sometimes unreachable standard.
The detectives are going above and beyond. It's the state's attorney's office that is being reluctant to charge.
Last year, Cook County prosecutors approved murder charges in 390 cases, but rejected them in 115 cases, a significant rise in rejections compared to previous years. State's Attorney Foxx declined to respond, but in an interview last week, spoke about the need for accountability as well as conviction integrity.
You know, I think my critics are folks who have been accustomed to doing things the same way and expecting a different result.
It is never lost on anybody who does this work that the work that everyone is doing is for the families.
Chicago's chief of detectives points to improvements, including new case management, support services, and family liaisons. She denies police are clearing cases prematurely, but refused to say whether the state's attorney's standard has gotten tougher.
Does that mean it's getting harder for detectives to go to the prosecutors and get cases approved?
Our detectives' job has always been incredibly difficult. It's difficult work that they do. We're going to do everything we can to go back until we either have gotten what they need or that we understand that we have given all the information that we can.
Sal Herrera's murder represents the difficulty detectives can face. The family suspects he may have seen people breaking into a car and tried to intervene, but there's no video and no known direct witnesses. When it comes to clearance rates, his sister says there's only one outcome: an arrest and conviction that matters.
You know, my brother deserved to live his life, and it was taken away from him. So there is no closure, but that is definitely a step in the right direction.
Looked like her head exploded. Missouri cop fatally shot 2-month-old baby and her mother after a relative called police for help. A Missouri family and their community are mourning the tragic deaths of 34-year-old woman and her infant daughter who were killed in an officer-involved shooting earlier this month. Family members say Maria Pike and her 2-month-old daughter Destiny Hope were shot to death on November 7th after police were called to the department in Independence, Missouri to respond to a domestic disturbance. Few details have been released by local law enforcement in the weeks since the shooting, but eyewitnesses shared their accounts of what happened. These are the eyewitness accounts. Talissa Coombs, the infant's grandmother, told the Kansas City Star that she was the one who called the police after getting into a physical altercation with the child's mother. Family members say Maria Pike had a mental health and anger issue, and she had recently been suffering from postpartum depression. Coombs said when she called the police, she thought authorities would arrive, take Pike into custody, and get her the help she needed. She told her son and Destiny's father, Mitchell Holder, they wanted to press charges against Pike for the assault. Okay. When police arrived, Holder reportedly refused to let them in at first, but the assistant property manager of the apartment complex persuaded him to let the two officers inside. The assistant manager, Gavin Delaney, told the Star what happened when police entered the apartment. Pike was in the bedroom closet holding Destiny, not doing or saying anything. Okay, Destiny's father, who witnessed the shooting firsthand, recounted the moments before the shooting to his sister, Ashley Greenfield. Greenfield told the Star that when the officers entered the apartment, they and Holder tried to take the baby away from Pike, and she moved from the closet to a bed. Greenfield stated that when Pike reached for an object on the nightstand, an officer shot the infant in the head while she was still in her mother's arms. Holder let her recall this horrified reaction to the shooting, blah, blah, blah. They shot my baby. Holder told the outlet it looked like... You know what? I ain't going to read the rest of this crap, you guys. We're going to move on with the show.
It started around 1:45 in the afternoon.
Police come swarming in here.
First, a domestic disturbance. The neighbors say a mother and child were shot.
The officer's going to be bringing the baby out. It's a gunshot wound to the chest.
The police run down the parking lot with a baby in their arm, bleeding and stuff.
Neighbors say one officer rushed the infant to the hospital.
They did not want to wait for an ambulance.
Both died from their wounds. Tonight, everyone has questions.
I did know them a little bit, but not much. I haven't been here very long, so not really. I just know it's a awful, awful situation. Very unfortunate.
Police say this is an open investigation. Neighbors are thankful for their fast response.
So that's nice to know that they came on time to try to help with the situation.
For much of the afternoon, the apartment entrance was closed to cars. Buses from elementary to high school dropped off students. The property manager met the children and took them safely to the clubhouse until parents returned from work.
I'm just going to make sure that they're safe and aren't freaking out. It was an awful thing to see.
It's just sad to hear about stuff like that going on in the world that we live in.
Nearly 300 families live in this apartment complex.
There's never an instance where this doesn't affect the community, your first responders. This isn't the outcome anybody wants.
And late tonight, police, there you heard, spoke on camera. We asked a lot of questions. They did not provide a lot of details or really very many answers. They wouldn't even confirm the identities of the people that were shot and were killed here or died here. Now, since officers did fire their weapons, the police-involved investigative team will lead this investigation. Live in Independence, Brian Johnson, KMBC 9 News.
Okay, folks, another day, another Bad Apple Report. And you know what tomorrow is? Another day and another Bad Apple Report right here at home on the range. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you right back here tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. bright and early.